Hey guys, it's Dr. JP, and today we're going to analyze the running form of Paul Chelimo. For those who don't know who he is, he's an elite middle to long distance runner who is most notably known for winning the silver medal during the 5K in the Rio Olympics in 2016. I'm really happy you guys suggested me to make a running analysis on him because he is such a great athlete to watch. Anyway, let's get into this running analysis. The clip we'll be looking at is when Chelimo participated in the 2017 Carlsbad 5K race. During this race, he runs an incredible time of 13 minutes and 47 seconds. Even though this was not his best time, this clip is probably one of the best side views of an elite long distance runner I've been able to look at. With these long distance races, I usually look at time splits throughout the race. However, unfortunately, I couldn't find them during this specific race. Anyway, let's take a look at overall components that make up speed, which is stride frequency, and stride length. During this clip, he presents with a step rate of 180 steps per minute. Now, before we move on, I know many of you are here to see how these elite athletes run and copy certain aspects, such as this quick step rate. While increasing your step rate may help decrease stress on the joints, especially at the knee, without an increase in energy consumption, I do not recommend a runner to go straight to running at 180 steps per minute. Too big of an increase in step rate from your preferred pace may actually cause an increase in metabolic costs to run, leading you to get tired much more quickly. I recommend slowly increasing your step rate by 5 to 10% from your preferred rate, and see how you feel from there. Anyway, this cadence is pretty popular among elite long distance runners. However, the factor that sticks out a bit more for him is his step length. Based on a few calculations, he presents with a step length of about 2.14 meters. The factors that contribute to this is his ability to utilize those long legs, as well as the decent force production as he pushes against the ground. Next, we will look at specific aspects of his running form which allows him to optimize his stride length while still maintaining a decent step rate. As always, we will start with the foot landing. As you can see, he presents with mid-foot landing. This makes sense as he's participating in a long distance race. In these types of races, landing around this area is usually more efficient than landing on the forefoot, as research has shown that landing around the forefoot leads to quicker breakdown of glycogen. What this basically means is that forefoot landing usually uses more active energy, which could make you tired a bit more quickly into the race. Anyway, what I prioritize more is where the foot lands in relation to the body's center of mass. As you can see, his foot lands in front of the center of mass. Contrary to some beliefs out there, this is not a bad thing. Obviously, you don't want to be reaching out with the foot and end up overstriding, where you land too far from the center of mass, but also if you land too close, the running cycle happens so quickly that you cannot effectively utilize the elastic properties of the muscles. Paul Chelimo's foot positioning during initial contact is out forward just enough to allow utilization of these elastic properties. Now, while this does cause slightly longer foot turnover, this style allows for a more efficient running style. Next, we will move on to foot movement as it goes from initial contact to pushing off the ground. I want you guys to pay attention to the hip movement during this transition. You can see how he really maximizes that backside movement of the hips. He really optimizes step length and takes advantage of the length of those legs. Let's move on to this next frame where we take a look at the amount of vertical movement that occurs as he runs. He actually presents with a bit of a bounce. I find this similar to the running style of Mo Farah. Having a bouncy type running style is something one typically does not focus on, as this may actually cause increased stress on the joints. Even though he presents with slightly more vertical oscillation compared to most other elite runners, it really is not an excessive amount. Now, if I were to try to apply one small tweak to his running, it would be to slightly increase cadence maybe by 5%. This may possibly minimize that bounce he has without an increase in energy consumption. Again, everyone has their own unique running form, so whether this tweak is beneficial or not really depends on the runner. Now let's take a look at hip movement as he runs. Here's his peak hip flexion in the running cycle. This is appropriate for this given pace as this usually increases at higher speeds. Now let's take a look at the hip extension. You can see that he has pretty good extension of those hips. Like I mentioned earlier, it really allows him to maximize usage of those legs, which contribute to his great step length. But it also may aid in efficiency because by bringing the hips into this position, it allows for a stretch to the hip flexors, causing an effect similar to that of an elastic band, which will help bring the leg forward during swing. Next, we are going to take a look at this frame. Look at his great postural alignment. You can really see this as you look at the trunk because he is not bending forward at all, and he does not arch his back, which is typically what happens when runners try to overcorrect to prevent trunk bending. While maintaining this alignment, his whole body is also tilted forward. This slight forward body tilt aids in momentum forward and improved push-off from the hip extensors during this phase. Now let's take a look at shoulder movement as he runs. Here I draw lines that represent the range in which his shoulders move. He presents with good backside movement of those shoulders and then returns to a relatively neutral position. He presents with good arm swing that is appropriate for this pace. Having a good enough mobility to maintain this arm swing aids in counteracting angular momentum coming from the legs. Now, let's take a look at the front view of his body. As you can see, he presents with pretty symmetrical movement of the arms and legs. His arms stay up high and relatively close to the body. You can also take a look at his legs and see how his heels stay lined up with the upper leg. He does not present with any heel whipping, allowing him to maintain that smooth cyclic motion of the legs. Finally, we will play this clip again and take a look at the head this time. You can see he maintains a relatively neutral position of the head as he runs. There is no forward and backward bopping. Instead, you'll see some side-to-side movement, which is natural as his body shifts its weight onto each leg. And that's it for the quick analysis on Paul Chelimo. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I would really appreciate if you shared this video. Again, I'm super grateful for all the support you guys have given me. Please let me know what you thought about the video and leave a comment below. And as always, thank you for watching.
A bit, and let's run it. And then we're gonna, as he is coming down the runway on his approach, now he's in his pullback phase. Now, there's some really wonderful things just for any javelin thrower to kind of envy, I guess, at this point, is that you can see that nature of that javelin as it's coming across. It's very high. A lot of javelin throwers, young javelin throwers especially, have the arm far too low down in this area, and really a good shot of the platform is nice and high, and that really represents a really good power position. So as we move it ahead a little bit more now, I'm just gonna take it off the pause. We're going to see him get into a really strong throwing position here in the impulse. Now, for a lot of javelin throwers, will recognize something on the runway, and that's down here. That's the 8-meter line. So he's made a commitment in his crossover phase, or really in the beginning of his impulse stride, to make that commitment to come into that power position at the end. So let's have a look at a couple things. One, his arm still remains high, back. One other really good thing is he's used this arm to kind of close himself off. He doesn't want to prematurely turn in the direction of throw just yet. You can see his shoulders are nice and square and perpendicular to the actual throwing sector. You can see here he's really done some really wonderful things. And in many of the throwing events, especially in the javelin, the disconnect from the lower and upper body. And what do I mean by that? This whole torso here that you see is actually still squared to the towards the crowd on that side. If you gentlemen with the yellow jerseys and stuff, you can see his hips are now starting to make a commitment here. So there's a slight turn obviously in them, and ultimately he will turn them in the direction of the throw while maintaining a very closed position on the upper body. Okay, so there's a clear disconnect there. So let's move it ahead a few frames, and we're going to have a look at where I think he's just set himself up for success here. I'm a big and a large, strong advocate in the crossover phases of the javelin throw to be in the direction of the throw. And what I mean by that is initially you could see Thomas in the back, and his foot was pointing probably in the 1:32 o'clock position at the very most. He certainly wasn't at 3 o'clock position. And as he starts moving into the final phases of his throw, you can see his toes are starting to come over, both feet pointing in the direction of the throw, while maintaining his hips kind of in a closed position. He's still over here, you see, so there's a clear disconnect from the upper and lower body, and even to the feet to some extent. So let's just move it ahead here. You'll see what I mean. Now look at that. That's a great position. He's starting to load the javelin for the final release. And let me just move it ahead just a couple more frames here. And you can see here. Well, look what's happening here. This is just awesome. You can see now he's turned over his foot in the kind of the direction of the throw. His right knee is now pointed in that direction. His hip is now pointed in that direction. But look at this, folks. His whole lower body has made a commitment to make the turn towards the throwing sector while maintaining his entire upper body. Look at this. Still square over to the right side of the runway. Look at that. Clear disconnect between the upper and lower body. Amazing. Now, his throw hasn't really started yet. Watch this. Let's make contact. Contact. Love it. Check this out. He's got a considerable distance between here and his contact foot, so he has the longest range of motion. He clearly has a very well-established block. Look at this block right here. His blocking left leg is not going to move, but that will allow everything on the right side to turn in the direction of the throw. You can see his arm will now come into a blocking left position here, and to facilitate a more linear throw in his approach. So watch this as we move a couple frames here. You can see the characteristic inverted C position. Look at that. That's, boy, I'll tell you, they're amazing, amazing position. So he is coiled for this release. Just entirely coiled. Look at the left side block. He's coiled. This is a body throw. You don't throw 93-90 throwing with your arm, folks. And a lot of young throwers think they throw with their arms. I'm telling you, this is an entire body contribution to this particular throw. Let's move it ahead a few more frames here. Look at that. Still maintaining his left side block on this side, you guys. Awesome. And look at the path of his release. That javelin is moving in a very beautiful line. Now that might be obscured a little bit because obviously the camera is moving, but you can see a really nice position as he moves out. Now, for all you javelin throwers that want to crowd the scratch line, can you see the scratch line in this field of view? No, he's given himself plenty of room to come down the runway. So let's have a look at his recovery phase here. The javelin has been released. What he does now is he's making every effort to save the throw and not to go over the scratch line. Now it's in full view, approximately 2.5 meters away, maybe 2 meters, and he's done everything properly. Look, he's gained his composure using his opposite right side in the recovery phase, and he knows it's a good throw. You can see his gaze here. He's having a look at that. And let's kind of move it ahead here, because I want to show a lot of people who are really very good at this event will understand what I'm just going to say here is he really hit the point. In other words, he threw it through the sky, through the space, through the point of the javelin in a way that the javelin glided perfectly. Let's watch this and you'll know what I mean here. Watch this here point right in here. You'll see and it's kind of strange to talk about the flighting of a javelin, but it really does contribute to the overall distance. You can see the now it's just like floating very, very well here. And I'm just going to move it a few frames and you'll know what I mean. It's just kind of floating through. It's not taking a dive or prematurely, the nose coming down. So he's thrown it through a point which is really, really appropriate. And he's maximized the distance using that implement. And as you can see here, it just continues to glide, and it doesn't take this big nosedive into the ground. And you can see here, Thomas is extremely elated. He knows it's a big throw. And from the front-on view here, you can see here a beautiful position here, blocking that left leg here on this side, totally blocked off. Nice solid blocking side here on the left side, so he can rotate and get the implement on its way. So he's put on the brakes on the left side, and the whole right side's coming through on this throw. Now, I don't want a lot of young throwers believing that he's flailing away at the end here. He's really trying to maintain his composure and throw that javelin through what I call the pipe, throwing it through a tube, if you will, because that's just how they're designed to be thrown. And as you see here, as you're moving the javelin through, he's just using all that flailing kind of his own kind of way to maintain his exposure in the event. Now, there you go. There's Thomas. And you can see he's not a really big guy in terms of his body profile. He doesn't have bulging muscles. But I can tell you he's cat-like and he's very quick and he puts a lot of velocity on the implement. Congratulations to Thomas Roll of Germany on being the second best male javelin thrower ever at 93 meters 90. Attaboy. Great throwing. Woo!
For more than 10 years, Contemplas has strived to develop the highest quality video-based systems for motion analysis in the fields of medicine and sports. Over the past 2 years, in cooperation with international experts, Contemplas has developed a swimming system that sets new limits for user-friendliness, image quality, and analysis results. For customers who require enhanced mobility and flexibility, Contemplas provides a 5-camera system for start and turn analysis in a compact flight case. With this solution, it is possible to objectively acquire all relevant spatial and kinematic parameters from start to the 15-meter position. The modular structure of the software allows it to cover various individual needs. Certainly, we can also create special solutions such as the movable twin camera system along the pool deck, or freely positioned pan, tilt, and zoom cameras. Contemplas offers solutions from race analysis with a single, movable camera to multi-camera systems with above and underwater cameras for start, turn, and timing analysis, to integrations with instrumented starting blocks and timing systems.